Hello, KCIW listeners, and welcome to Curry Café. I'm volunteer Rick McNamer with your host, Ray Gary, KCIW's famous radio personality and influencer. Here at Curry Café, we put together a panel of guests, or a guest, as is the case today, to discuss topics of interest in our community. Listeners can participate in our show by texting in questions or comments to 541-661-4098. Again, that's 541-661-4098. Before we begin, I would like to let our listeners know that KCIW is an all-volunteer community radio station that depends on our volunteers, sponsors, underwriters, and local businesses with their generous donations to keep us on the air. If you'd like to help us out, please go to kciw.org. And speaking of support from our local businesses, KCIW and Curry Café would like to thank our sponsor, Z Clean Laundry, located at 1107 Chetco Avenue, here in Brookings. Z Clean will wash and fold your laundry within 2 to 3 days after drop-off and will rush the order if you need it sooner. They also handle large loads like comforters. They offer dry cleaning and can handle linen services also. KCIW appreciates and thanks Z Clean for their generous support for community radio. And before I turn it over to Mr. Ray Gary, famous radio personality, I just want to shout out to the ongoing Wild Rivers Film Festival we have this weekend, which I've attended 3 movies and plan on, I guess I'm going to miss the last because not enough time, but there's still time to catch a great independent film starting at today at 4 and different locations. Okay, that's my shout out to Wild Rivers Film Festival. So, Mr. Ray, tell us about today's show.
Well, I'll just back up what you said about the film festival. I think good time was had by all, and I've seen several of the films this year, and I think they're the best that they've had since I've been going to the film festival.
Great lineup.
So today is a historical show. We go way back to a period where not many people remember, and every day there's less of us to remember them. And those of us who can remember them can't remember them because we don't remember anything anymore. So I'm going to let our guest introduce himself and tell you why he's here.
Well, am I coming through? My name's Hank Cunningham. I'm a local resident, live in the downtown area here with my wife, about a 3-minute walk. So that's the main reason I'm here. I just turned 80 years old recently, and thinking, what can I do for this wonderful KCIW radio station and my friends, Rick and Ray? And I thought, what have I done that's been interesting in my life? And at 80 years old, I have to go back to when I was 20 years old and was drafted into the U.S. Army and sent to Vietnam. So I don't want to see that happening to other young men, boys really, and they have instituted now, the government has instituted something called automatic registration, quote unquote. And I read about that, and I thought, that doesn't sound too good. That could happen to my youngest grandson in 6 years. So the key facts about automatic registration, it doesn't reinstitute the draft, but as of December 18th, 2026, eligible male U.S. citizens and residents living in the country will be automatically registered for Selective Service using federal databases instead of having to sign up individually. Again, it doesn't mean that they're reinstituting the draft, but if you were going to make a first step in reinstituting the draft, this would be that first step. So they'll pull in data from all other federal agencies, Social Security and so forth, and nearly all U.S. male citizens, not women. This has nothing to do with drafting women, nor should it. Women are excluded, and military draft remains inactive and would still require explicit authorization from both Congress and the president during a major national emergency. Now let's see. I think we have a few what could be classified or by some people as major national emergencies, war fronts going here and there all over the planet, and it doesn't seem to me that it would take too much to justify in some people's minds reinstituting the draft. The draft, when I was drafted at 19 years old in 1966, it happened so quickly, and I was among a number of 1.85 million draftees, and there were 30% combat deaths in Vietnam, and I just only through a stroke of luck was I, nor Ray, not among one of those statistics. Probably not going to happen, but I think we all, particularly those of us who were draftees and served as in combat, I think it's particularly incumbent upon us to stand up and say something. And that's why I'm grateful that KCIW is here as a vehicle, in this case, for us to do that. So my statement, I'm a drafting and combat veteran. I'm adamantly opposed to the involuntary draft. It's conscription, pure and simple. There are still, I thought there were just a handful of us, but there's still 600,000 what were called in-country vets still alive. And again, 30% of the 58,000 who died in Vietnam, young men and women. This would count, no, this would just be the men. 30% of the 58,000 were draftees. There were young women over there as nurses who were very brave and extremely competent, but they wouldn't have counted among the 58,000. I could be wrong on that. But,
well, as the ones that were drafted, I believe, right?
Yeah, the draftees were, yeah.
A lot of those nurses, and most of them were nurses, they were volunteers.
So I just don't want to see this happen. I have a grandson who would be,
eligible, possibly.
Eligible, given he would have to sign up for Selective Service, and that's only 6 years from now.
Yeah.
He's 12 years old.
Okay. And all I have personally is 2 granddaughters, so I don't have to really worry about them. But I do have a great-grandson, but he's not even 1 yet. But you know what? If they institute it, could it go on that long? Possibly. And like you were saying, Hank, it's a opening of the door to possibly get the draft instituted again.
The draft that we were involved in, that started during World War II?
Well, there was a much larger percentage and number of draftees in World War II. I don't have the figure right in front.
I'm just talking about in terms of how long the draft lasted. It was before Korea, right?
World War II draft was for the duration of the war, so I think it went for maybe 6 years or something like that. I don't, but this was for a period up to 1973, from 64 through 1973. That's the what's called the Vietnam War draft, or Vietnam draft, was that period, that 9 or 10 year period.
And it's funny, that's an interesting stat that I'm unaware of, that the draft, we had a draft, but it didn't start, for the Vietnam War, it didn't start until what year you say, 1960?
64. So, well, it didn't, the draft, it was for the period 1964 through 73.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it ended in 73.
Oh, yeah, okay. Of course, up until then, I think and it was only men, I believe, before that. You had to register at 18.
Yeah.
We were told that, 18 to go down and register for the draft that is required by law. And most of us didn't really object to it. We thought it was cool, man. We have a draft card now.
Wow.
And in New York, at least, that was the best proof you could have. You want to sit down at the bar and have a drink. At 18. I don't know if it's still 18, but anyway.
Certain states are 18.
Even though I grew up in Seattle, I didn't give a thought to crossing the border into Canada. I just thought I just did what a patriotic young man was told to do.
That's exactly true. Yeah, I didn't want to go, but I knew my forefathers had gone, and those commies were eating up the Orient, and we better stop them there before they can get here. That was the kind of the battle cry. Let's fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here.
Yeah.
And I have many times reflected on that, knowing that we were very successful in that, because even now I've yet to see a sampan pull into the beach here.
Yeah.
So we took care of them there.
I would add both my parents were World War II military veterans.
Oh, my.
The Air Corps, yeah. Both of them.
Your mother also?
Yes.
Boy, that was pretty rare.
That's where they met. Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister was in the Navy during World War II. But in talking to her later years, she was just looking forward to the adventure of getting out of the crappy little town. Well, getting out of New York and go and seeing things. Maybe I could. We keep saying draft. There might be some people listening who either don't remember or don't know what that was like to live under the draft. So when I was of draft age, as we called it, you graduated from high school, and you either went to college or you got married or you did all these different things. But there was certain things you didn't do because any day now you're going to get drafted. You didn't get a car, a new car or anything. You didn't get married. You didn't do all sorts of things, just waiting to get drafted. And when that's over, you can go on with your life. Well, I got my letter one day, the greetings, your friends and neighbors thing have selected you. And I went to Whitehall Street just like Oliver Guthrie did, except I didn't have the sense of going out and...
You didn't want to kill.
Yeah, well, he never did get drafted, but the movie doesn't explain it. I don't think it was the misdemeanor law littering, but he did say that to be a good, pure American, he went out and drank as much as he could the night before, and he did whatever he could to look like a real upstanding citizen. But anyway, I went to that same place and figured, well, I'm drafted for sure because I'm in good health. And after a couple of weeks, a letter came from the draft board, and it says you are classified 1Y. Well, I'd never heard of 1Y. I didn't know what 1Y was, so I called them up. And it literally said, women and children before you. So I said, oh, whoopee.
How brave.
Oh, whoopee, I'm not going to get drafted.
I mean, that is just like you. But that's...
Within just a few months, I don't remember even what president it was. They wanted to build up the forces. And all of a sudden, I wasn't as much of an invalid as I had been on my first physical, and I was 1A. And then within a few weeks after that, I was on my way. For me, I was just a dumb kid. I didn't pay much attention to anything. I knew there was a war going on, but I didn't really know a lot about it. And so when I showed up for the swearing-in thing, and I knew I was going that day, all my friends who had joined the Army or been drafted all went to that, and then they went down to Fort Dix for 2 months of training. And they came home on the weekends. I mean, it wasn't a bad gig at all. And so I'm standing there waiting to be told to report to Fort Dix at some time in the future. And they brought a guy in, put us on a bus that's sending us to South Carolina. Now, people from New York, especially the city area, are very provincial. And to me, South Carolina sounded like the end of the world. And they put us on a bus, took us to the train station. I'd never been on a train in my life for any significant distance. And trains are not like the interstates. The interstates, you're driving down the road and farms and this and that. Trains literally go through people's backyards. And there were some pretty strange backyards. And I'm thinking, people lived like this? It was just amazing. But anyway, I was on my way to a whole new journey where I learned a lot about sociology. I learned that there really were people who talk like Gomer Pyle. I just thought that was in the movies. Lots of fascinating things. I learned. And on nights off or days off when we had an opportunity to go downtown, which wasn't often a basic training, I found out what it was like to be black. Because even though I wasn't black, we were GIs and we would sit in a restaurant for an hour before anybody paid any attention to us. And there still were signs around whites only. 1966.
Well, unfortunately, that is a part of our history that can be pretty ugly. And
Yeah, well, that was the first that I had growing up in Seattle. As you can imagine, there were very few black people in the 50s and 60s. And
If there was a black guy in my neighborhood, he was a plumber or fixing something. He didn't live there.
I didn't see there was one black kid in my high school graduating class in Seattle, and so I had no experience until I was thrust into that. So that's a good part of it. You know, it enriched my understanding of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I literally grew up, went to places I couldn't believe. First time I ever went on a plane, and they flew me out to Texas. And in a couple of hours, literally, I'm in a completely different world. There's banana trees, people wearing big hats and all. Just a whole nother different world in just a few hours.
Well, and again, we talked a lot before the show. And by the way, if you have a question or comment, please text in 541-661-4098 about, and my personal experience in the military was quite different from both Hank and Ray, and a different time. Like I said, you guys were drafted both in 1966.
66.
Yeah.
Now, in my sense of history, even of the Vietnam War, which I was, quote, part of, but not directly involved, like these two fellows were having your life threatened almost every day for a year, I'm assuming. Pretty ugly stuff. And you guys both talked about how lucky you feel you weren't part of that 58,000, because it was just kind of I shouldn't say luck of the draw, the unluck of the draw, unlucky.
Well, Ray and I both went over on troop ships with the 9th Infantry Division, and I was pretty sure that I was going to die in Vietnam. It started off with climbing off the side of a ship on these rope ladders, getting into LSTs, and then being boated ashore to...
That was in Vietnam?
That was in Vietnam.
Because I remember the World War II footage of them, the D-Day. I didn't know that they still did that.
I did.
Well, the difference
again,
was,
we were in the Air Force. We were escorted to our places.
the difference between landing in Vung Tau, which was a French resort town, and landing in Normandy,
Yeah.
was night and day.
Well,
So
again,
we were not under fire. It was a bunch of tourists. They had to kind of move out of the way so we could disembark the ship.
okay.
Vung Tau was an interesting place. It was a R&R place for the Americans, but also for the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese, laying there on the beach together. Of course, we didn't know who they were. They did know who we were. And I can remember once talking to my house girl, which was later in the war for me, and she said her cousin had just been to Vung Tau, and he's walking along the beach. He's going, VC, VC. These were known people, but it was a neutral zone, like Cam Bay, I believe, was about the same way.
That's I didn't know that at the time, but that's true.
Yeah. The interesting thing about places like Vung Tau is there were guys there who wore starch fatigues every day to work. I never heard of a shot fired in anger. Spent their whole tour basically not even, I guess, being issued a gun. There's I saw a show one time that said that the Cameron Bay actually had people who were drafted in the Army to go to Cameron Bay to surf. And I don't.
That's a new military assignment that I wasn't aware of myself.
Really?
They went with whatever MOS they had, but evidently they were good surfers, so they were on. And I don't know that story was true.
I wasn't even in Saigon that often. It was mainly up around Chu-Lai. By that time, I had been infused into a different unit, not the 9th Infantry Division. So that was about 50 kilometers south of Da Nang. So different situation there.
We would have considered that to be really bad. Of course, we considered every place we were, any place we weren't was worse than where we were.
Yeah.
Because, there's NVA there, there's this there, there's that there.
Yeah, they called it I Corps, which was Roman numeral 1, and it was one of, I don't know, I mean, 4, were there 4 or 5? There were 4 areas, the corps, they were called in Vietnam, and I Corps was number 1, and that would have included Da Nang and Chu-Lai, places like that. The northern part of what was then South Vietnam.
So you were dealing with NVA mostly then?
Not that I ever saw them other than the bodies, but no, they were VC.
We would have VC with NVA cadre training, and the NVA, of course, had much better weaponry. We would usually go over a field, and if there were any guns left, they'd be like World War II guns or guns that nobody else wanted.
Curious, did either one of you guys actually enter the North Vietnam? Was it because all the fighting even was mostly South Vietnam?
Yeah,
North Vietnam was a bombing.
Well, that was kind of my part, but from far away. That's what I did. Loaded them all on the B-52s and watched them take off loaded. And I'm wondering, God, I hope none of you guys ever got. I know that I don't know how perfect they were at their bombing targets, but we always wondered how many of these bombs, were killing the wrong people.
Da Nang was as far north as I got, and then past there was the demilitarized something.
Okay.
Most of the fire support we used was from local fire support bases, 155 and 105s, mobile artillery. I don't know what they call that. But every now and then we would be someplace where somebody close to us was getting fire support from the ships. It was a whole world of difference. I mean, huge explosions where we didn't have much of that. And then one time we were not very far, evidently, from a B-52 strike. And what do they call it? Walking thunder, rolling thunder or something? And that's... The ground shook, and it was just...
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions, because all I saw is that we put them on the plane, and there off they went, and we were done.
Yeah.
Go back to the golf course, and I'm being a little facetious there. We didn't do that.
But the ping pong table was...
Oh, big time. Big time. And I want to go... Let's jump back real quick to, Hank, you made about going to Canada. What do you think about those people now? Does it... Again, I wasn't into combat, but it kind of bothers me a little bit that they went to Canada. I'm not calling them the bad traitors. Do you agree with what they did?
I do now.
You do now?
Yeah, I didn't at the time, though.
Yeah, I won't say I regretted not going, but again, I was 19 years old. It happened so fast. And I was, my parents were veterans, and, I just did what I was an obedient citizen. And I was at the very top of the list, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, again, that's why they conscript young men, because we're pretty malleable, and everybody was a little gung-ho, maybe. I know I was, and that was later. Like I said, I didn't go until 71, and by then, a lot of the bad stuff about the war was being reported, and that's when it kind of started splitting our country up,
And there was a lot of bad stuff. So
for sure.
And so retrospectively, Ray, to what you were saying, Yeah, had I to do over again, I was probably an hour from the Canadian border. I would have probably headed up to Canada.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
Ray, what about you?
I don't know. Maybe I was just too dumb or something, but I never even thought about leaving the country or going to jail as an option. It just seemed like my civic duty to do. We had to go kill those communists.
Yeah, that's I agree completely.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
had
But
you asked me at the
that's right.
time,
Yeah.
why do we have to kill the communists or who are the communists, or
Yeah, I didn't
probably
know that.
couldn't have answered the question.
I grew up in Seattle. A lot of Asian people in Seattle, and they looked similar. So
Oh.
why would I had nothing against them?
Right. Right.
When I first came home, I was home on leave, and I went to a Chinese restaurant. And when up to register to pay my bill, and the Asian lady at Chinese restaurant behind the counter counted back my change with a Brooklyn accent. I thought, this is strange. I'm someplace new.
Yeah.
Yeah, as American as can be.
Yeah. And this, did you ever see or hear of or know anybody personally who got spit on when they were returned?
Oh, I was going to bring that up. Thank
some
you,
way
Ray.
mistreated.
Well, to me, that's a fallacy because it never happened to me. Nothing remotely resembling that. I did feel I'll put that on myself rather than other people. I did feel a certain stigma, but it wasn't that anybody ever spit on me or shamed me in any way. Now, this was pre-thank you for your service euphemism.
Oh, yeah.
But I would think about, again, that's my own, came my own mind, from my own mind, that I would think people were looking at me funny, but I don't know that they were.
I never felt that at all, even the slightest. In fact, when I got home to my little community where I lived, but I had an article written about me in the New York Daily News, which is a huge paper, million circulation.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a nonsense thing. I mean, the guy showed up at the unit, wanted to talk to people from New York, and took everything I told him and kind of turned it around to where all my responses were embarrassing. But that's my first experience with the press. But I was hometown hero. Hometown boy makes good. What the hell make good? But anyway, I still have that article someplace probably.
Well, and I'm glad you guys brought that up because we've talked about it here before about the people spitting on and throwing things. I heard that was either way overdone or just not true at all. But there was definitely a mood in the country where at the time Vietnam vets were kind of looked down upon by a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm
hard to imagine that that was, but the press that's when we started getting a better look at what exactly was going on in the war.
Yeah.
From the old World War II days, and again, different time and a different whole set of circumstances.
And I'm glad that there are people on principle who did leave the country and go to Canada.
Okay.
And particularly those that ended up being jailed. Again, I didn't take that route, but it wasn't because I was a super patriot so much as I just, was minding. I was being obedient.
Well, I think we all were.
Yeah.
Again, at that age, I'll say it again, a little different time frame for me, a little later on in the war, but
Yeah.
Young men were what they wanted to get in the military.
Virtually all my friends were in one way or another either drafted or joined like you did.
Okay.
So it just seemed perfectly natural to me. Okay. And to be honest too, in the early parts of my deployment, it was kind of an adventure. Here I was, a young kid being drafted off the boring streets of Long Island, and now I'm in a jungle carrying a gun, and people want to kill me, and I want to kill people. It was a young man's adventure. And I can
Dangerous adventure, but yes, an adventure
I
nonetheless.
can vividly remember a huge firefight that we got involved in. We were a backup force, which meant that we would sit about 5 miles away from where they expected the contact to be, and the helicopters waiting to drop us in should something go bad. Well, something went really, really bad very quickly. The unit that we were backing up, they had unloaded from a river onto a huge rice paddy field, and pretty much as soon as they all got on the ground, a unit from in front opened up on them. So the captain or whoever it was did what you're supposed to do, put everybody up on line, which means that you're moving, fire and movement, you're keeping the heads down of everybody in front of you. Unbeknownst to this captain, there was a unit alongside, and these guys got caught in a crossfire ambush, and there were 55 people killed in literally minutes. And these are the people that we were going to go help relieve. Anyway, we got there, and we're fighting our way and running from dike to dike and ducking bullets and shooting and this and that. And for probably maybe close to an hour, I was having fun. This was a great adventure. Then people started dying around me, and it wasn't so much fun anymore.
Well, that would be a big reality check, I would assume, in whatever endeavors you guys were.
And that brings to mind that while both Ray and I were medics, neither one of us were conscientious objectors. So we were both trained in all kinds of weaponry, from M16s, 45 pistols, you name it.
Since you trained with the unit, you probably got all of that. I showed up in Vietnam with the only combat training I had was in basic, which is not much of anything. They don't teach you anything about tactics or fire and movement or any of this stuff that you're supposed to know. They didn't even teach me that you stay 15 meters apart. The first time we went out on an operation, I flew in from base camp, and you'll get off the helicopter, and I walked up to the sergeant. He said, "Get the hell away from me. Don't you ever get this close." Our unit was 15 meters apart regardless of what you were doing, and it turned out to be true. The reason for that is if you were 2 or 3 people, you became more of a target than just one person.
I want to get back to that real quick. We are halfway through the show, and it goes quickly. 541-661-4098. Text in or questions or comments, please. So just want to remind our listeners that you're listening to KCIWLP 100.7 FM in Brookings, Oregon. We are an all-volunteer community radio station. If you'd like to be a part of KCIW as a volunteer, whether you would like to help out with a donation, assist us with technical skills, or even host your own radio program, please visit our website at kciw.org and click Get Involved. We'd love to have you as part of the KCIW team. Thank you. Like our sponsor, Z Clean Laundry. Now, so back to what you said, Ray, I always thought, again, Air Force, Army, two different things. I always thought that you went right from basic into AIT, Advanced Infantry Training. You didn't?
Advanced Individual Training is what AIT actually.
Oh, okay. Well,
so no,
wrong then. But I thought that was a requirement before you went into a combat zone.
Well, I went technically as a non-combatant.
But surprise, like Gomer says.
Yeah, but I knew that in order to survive, I had to look like everybody else, because when you were ambushed or whatever, they were looking for the officers and the medics to somewhat disorganized. Yeah. So I carried a gun. I never saw a medic with the big red badges on and any of that crap.
Oh, same here. And the AIT was basically medic school, which is in Fort Sam Houston, Texas. And I think we both went. That's the only, at least in the West. Was there some other place
I think it's the only training place to have.
So that's
they called it
for combat medics.
Country Club of the Army. It was just outside of San Antonio, which was one of the better places to.
Oh, that's where all the Air Force basic training was.
Yeah.
Lackland Air Force Base.
Yeah. So do that medic training in Texas, and then to AIT. So I did have AIT. I was back at Fort Riley, Kansas by that point for AIT.
all I can remember in medic school, as a medic in the Army, you could work in a hospital, the equivalent of probably, I don't know what they call them, medical aides. You weren't an orderly, but you could give shots and you could do things like that.
Right.
And that you could have that job, or you could be assigned to a field unit. And of course, my luck held out that I was immediately put into an infantry unit.
Yes, I was too.
Yeah, and
Now, I wouldn't call that lucky, correct? Was that a little sarcastic comment?
First night we were out, what we would do is we were in an area called the Wrong Side Special Zone, which was all mangrove, and the tide came in twice a day. And if it came in during the night, you slept in a foot of water, or you halfway up a tree, or we had a pile of sticks. And the first night we were going out on this ambush, and I had no idea what the hell we were doing. And they said, we're going to set up on this river here and wait see if somebody comes by. And I thought, what about behind us? I had no idea that there was a method to this whole thing. The people were situated in a place we were supposed to be. And I was always with what they call the command CP, with the platoon sergeant and the lieutenant, partially because they wanted me there and partially because if there was an option of a comfortable place or an uncomfortable place, they would be in a comfortable place. For instance, once we would set up in a village and everybody else is out in the rice paddies and I'm in the house.
Hard to imagine any comfortable place while you're going through what you guys went through. But
being in an armor unit, armored cavalry, we would go on what they euphemistically called search and destroy missions, and we made so much noise because we were armored personnel carriers and tanks. And I'm sure they could hear us coming miles away.
Yeah.
So we were ripe for ambush. But we would just, a armored personnel carrier, a 50 caliber machine gun, and 260 M60s one on each side, and we would just rake the jungle going through. And who knows? Yeah, there were definitely enemy casualties because of that, but it was overkill, quote unquote.
Really? Wow.
My first experience with the mech was we were in a firefight that we had been in all day, and it was pretty horrific. I mean, the enemy was pretty close, and they weren't moving and this and that. And so after all day of this, they brought in a mech unit to come in from the other side of the enemy, if I'm saying this correctly. And they were going to come in and sweep through the enemy with all the firepower you just described and shooting over our head. So this came in to the lieutenant, and the lieutenant passed it on to the RTO, or the RTO passed it. Anyway, the RTO sent out a radio telephone operator, sent out a message to everybody, get down, they're going to be hitting us with everything. He was a Mexican, and why they picked him to be the RTO with his accent, I don't know. But he didn't say the mech is coming at us with everything. He just said they're going to be coming at us with everything, and we assumed that meant the bad guys. And all of a sudden, the world lit up, and 50s are going over our head, and we all thought we were going to die, except I was there and knew it was the mech unit, but a lot of people didn't. It was kind of an interesting day.
Yeah, interesting. One heck of a way to describe it, I suppose.
That same day, earlier in the day, during the day, we called in airstrikes. So these jets, I don't know what they were, very noisy, and coming down, dropping bombs. And this jet comes down, and you hear him roaring in, and then you hear the bomb drop, and the jet is roaring away, and you could hear bang, bang. There was some fool shooting at this thing with a bolt-action rifle. I said, we ain't never going to win this war. These guys are pretty determined.
That's true.
Well, so speaking of the jets flying over, that, part of the Air Force's, I'm assuming, support, there was a lot of times having them come in. And now, Hank, you said something about just going crazy with shooting up the jungle, more or less.
Yeah.
But Air Force support was probably there at times to kind of hopefully make it, hard to say better, but,
Yeah,
to protect and take care of the
they would call in airstrikes, and then when I mentioned seeing bodies lined up against the road, that would be the next morning. But our biggest fear or danger were mortar attacks from enemies. So the airstrikes definitely put major casualties on the.
Okay.
And they're horrific to watch. I was crossing a creek on a log, which were bridges there. You could, just a log falling down over the river, and this jet came in and laid down napalm, and they came in two different sizes, but this was the extra large one, I guess, and it laid down a field of unbelievable fire for probably 100 yards. And I could feel the heat where I was quite a distance away, and I'm thinking, damn, there's people in that. There's people being burned up like that.
Yeah. Isn't that from the napalm, isn't that where is it Agent Orange was associated with the napalm? Do I have that right?
Agent Orange was a defoliant.
Okay.
That was used just about anywhere.
Well, what I'm saying is that I know maybe you guys both have this going, but there's a lot of vets that have Agent Orange benefits, if you hard to call them benefits, but because they suffer from that.
There are
the after effects. Whatever.
I think there's five problems you can have that are automatically attributed to Agent Orange. You don't have to prove it, and prostate cancer was one of them, and some other things. I can't remember all of them. But
I forget what the term is, but it's like automatic.
It's automatic benefit that you would. I got it here again. It's hard to call it a benefit, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's assumed that if you were exposed to Agent Orange.
This is why you have these cancers.
And being exposed meant you were in country anywhere. You didn't have to show that you were affected by Agent Orange because of your contact. I didn't even know if I was. I know we went to through some areas that were defoliated. There was sticky stuff on the branches, and somebody said it was napalm. I don't know what it was, but we didn't even know about Agent Orange on the field.
I didn't know it by name at the time, but yes.
Probably not many people did.
On these search and destroy missions, we went through defoliated.
You talked about search and destroy being a euphemism, which in fact it was, at least in the infantry. Search meant you go out and walk in the woods, and destroy means you destroy them when they attack you. You kind of wander around until the enemy finds you, they attack you.
That's well put. That's why I said search and be destroyed.
Yes.
A better way to describe it, I guess. Yeah. More realistic. Yeah. And then both of you being combat medics, I'm ignorant of the statistics, but I have to think that was a high rate of not making it through if you were a combat medic. I know they always go to the gunners at the helicopter, the side gunners with the helicopters and stuff. They had a high casualty rate, I guess. I would assume combat medics were in that category.
When I joined my unit, the doctor said that we had 21 medics in the battalion. He says, I'm going to be rotating you. I think it was every month. You should have spent a month in the aid station and a month in the field. Well, that never happened because the guys in the field were getting eaten up pretty quickly. We never had enough people to rotate. I'm trying to remember the numbers right now. I know we had 21 medics and there were 17 casualties, and I don't remember how many of those were KIA and how many were just, in parentheses, wounded.
Yeah.
And when you'd hear about firefights, or even now in Morsia, there were 7 killed and 15 casualties. Oh, they're just casualties. Well, just casualties could be incredibly serious. Like, losing legs, be paralyzed for the rest of your life, and all sorts of things. Wounded.
You bet.
Encompasses.
Yeah, I guess some people might even say, it's hard to say, but, they're better off KIA, but there were some horrific injuries people had to suffer for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think the medevac was so efficient in Vietnam. Maybe that was the first war that it was that efficient. That led to survivors, amputees, and that's the really tragic part of it.
And not to mention the mental health aspect of the whole thing. I mean, we know the suicide rates and all of that stuff. People that have gone through what both of you went through.
Yeah, and I had witnessed the immediate aftermath of a suicide, and when I was
in country while they were
when
there.
I was first there, within the first few weeks I was there, yeah. So
Pretty
there was a
brutal.
lot of baggage.
Of course, yeah.
The kind of the added problem for a medic, at least this is what I had, and I bet you everybody did, is we went to 10 weeks of training, and that they taught you how to put on Band-Aids and how to basically stop bleeding, maybe mouth-to-mouth and a few things to hopefully keep the guy alive until you could get him on the helicopter. It wasn't adequate at all, really. And so my biggest fear was I would come up on somebody and didn't have a clue what to do. My other fear was there would be somebody that needed to be got to, and I'd be afraid to go where he was. Fortunately, I never really
You never had to make that decision?
I had one guy who I didn't know what to do, but it was nothing to do. He'd been shot in both lungs, and he tried mouth-to-mouth, and blood came out. So the one time I did have, we'd been in a firefight, and I'm working my way along the dike, getting to casualties, and then there were two casualties who were very alive. One was a medic and one was a rifleman, about 25, 30 yards from where I was in open rice paddy. And they got shot because they were in the open rice paddy. And I'm working, and I got to the end of the dike, and my next job was to go out and get those guys. And I said to one of the infantrymen there, he says, I can't go out there. He says, no, you can't. I was so glad he didn't say, you're the medic, go save those people. But
Well, here again, a young man like we all were, to try to be in a situation like that, to make that decision, that's a pretty hard thing to put on people. But
Yeah.
that's what part of the, I know the old war adage, war is hell. Yes, it is. But boy,
It was what you couldn't do that was so frustrating and traumatizing. You expected that you'd be able to save someone, and that didn't always happen.
since you were in a mech unit, did you carry anything other than an aid bag? Did you have something in it? I mean, we were taught how to give start IVs and all that. I never saw an IV.
No, I never started IV. No, never did.
hey, we have a text today. Thank you, texter. And it says, thank you all for sharing your experiences from being drafted or enlisting through your time in the service. Hearing what you went through is fascinating yet horrifying. Yeah, no kidding. It's just so hard to think that you all were so very young. Thank you all so very much for your service. Well, thank you for that, texter, and very, very true words there.
Yeah, we just had those little ampules of
Morphine.
yeah, morphine.
That they cautioned us so much about using. The first time I used it, it wasn't that somebody had been shot. We were clearing an LZ to bring choppers in, and somehow this guy fell or something, and he broke his kneecap. And he's in terrible pain, but I'm thinking, Jesus, broken bone. Can we use this for broken bone? And finally the priest came up to me and says, yeah, right, that's very painful. So, okay. So, pumped him up.
Now, what did you call the module?
It's an ampule.
Of morphine?
Morphine.
Yeah.
There was something I remember we had, our training was atropine, a shot that you would give somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound familiar for a medic or no?
What was atropine used for? I don't remember it.
Atropine was,
I thought it was the super pain relief. I just remember that.
no.
It
my
was
80-year-old brain. Is
Well, okay, and maybe I have it wrong
Yeah.
too, but that's just one thing I seem to remember.
I think it had to do with if you were exposed to something, the atropine relieved it or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't have that.
I have to ask this too. So you both were there 1 year, roughly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go to this first. What do you think about the people? It always amazed me to hear about the men, mostly. Some of the women nurses went back. That would, after they go through all this, they volunteer to go back to another tour. Some for multiple tours. What kind of mindset, I wonder, would
Yeah.
You know, if you-
into someone like that?
They're brave, dedicated people. It's not something that I would have done. I was amazed that I survived.
Right.
The
You
year
dodged
I was
that
there.
bullet. Who wants
And that
to go?
was the limit, was a 12-month tour of duty. So you had to, if you wanted to stay longer, you had to, they call it re-up.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. No.
But
You know, I mentioned before it was like an adventure for a while, and you get into it and you become kind of an adventure junkie. And for certain people, they didn't want to leave that feeling of an adventure.
wow. And again, maybe they had I facetiously call it the John Wayne syndrome, but I assume there were people that were like that, you know? But
I'm sure there were, and we're lucky that there are those brave soldiers that
did that.
were willing to do that.
Yeah.
Wasn't me, but
Well, it wouldn't have been me either had I been there. And a terrible analogy with John Wayne, who was, never really a military person, but he played one on TV. So there you go.
Right.
And back to the draft situation, I've always been in favor now, and I hate, it's kind of hard to use Israel these days as an example, but they have national service for, I think, all youth that they have, and that goes from 18 to, I had it written, I'm having trouble finding it, 17 to 24. But I've always been a fan of that for young people, if they just have no direction, to either be part of even a community service, military. I still believe we need a strong military. I think we all agree with that pretty much.
Oh,
It can
absolutely.
go crazy ways. It has lately in certain ways, but yeah, to have some kind of national service to give back to your country, your community, or whatever. Unless you want to go right into college and be a doctor, I understand that too.
but aren't they getting enough voluntary?
In Israel.
In Israel.
That's
sorry.
No. That's where I was just going. That's the example, and I don't know about that. Are they these days? Are they having enough volunteers?
Apparently so. There's since '73, there's been no draft
Correct.
since then. And
But like you said, they just instituted this other thing. Maybe they're starting to feel the pressure. Like, not enough people are going to be volunteers.
you kind of have to wonder why. Yeah, why are they making this automatic registration?
Right. And I throw out the one example that's been on the news lately is that ship, I think it's the Lincoln USS that's off the coast of Iran. Who knows what's going on there? And they've had, the reports were one military person tried to jump off, or one is going to jump off, which is that's a pretty bizarre way of getting out of the military. But that's the situation. What I'm saying is the military right now, maybe it's not such a grand thing that a lot of people used to think it was.
Do you remember
go in.
when the first Gulf War started, when Bush started sending all these people over?
Yeah.
There were a lot of people, talking about Marines and everything, who said, wait a minute, I didn't know I was going to have to fight. I just wanted to. And they actually discharged a bunch of them because they would not go.
Oh, that I don't remember that.
We had one person, I didn't see it, or jump ship on the way over.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
But
You mean survive? Let me go there. No. Okay. Because I did look up, I was surprised, the person I'm talking about that jumped off the Lincoln there in Iran, that would be desertion, I would assume. And the desertion penalty now is still death. That surprised me a little bit, but it has to be desertion in the time of war. And right now, do we even know what the Iran, I call it conflict, is? Is it called a war? I don't know.
Well, I think Trump said something about, it's war. They can expect to have bad conditions sometimes.
Yeah, easy for him to make.
Yes, of course it is. His biggest hardship during the Vietnam War was avoiding VD.
Right.
And he proudly says that.
Right. I'm surprised he doesn't want the Medal of Honor for his dedicated service. But yeah, it's a crazy time. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing this country initiate a national service.
Does the Peace Corps still exist?
I believe it does. It certainly doesn't make the news like it used to make back in the 60s and 70s, but I think it still exists.
I would agree and concur.
Which is a wonderful thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Some alternative, but not drafted into combat.
Right.
Into a combat role.
Well, and again, let's hope it doesn't get that serious, but like you say, Hank, it could be the opening door from what they started to initiate. And you said it's not in power yet. That's the right word, but it's going to be.
I don't know how you do that, though. If you're drafted, if the draft is reinstituted, there would have to be deferrals, automatic type of
well, you're talking about medical and that kind of stuff,
which apparently they would have. So
I would assume so.
But I'm still opposed to the idea of an involuntary draft.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. Kind of a little mixed feelings about it with what is going on, but yeah. Ray, what about you? Definitely.
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. If we were in a situation where we needed a military and we weren't getting the volunteers we needed, we would have to draft people. Years ago, I don't know who did this, but there was supposedly a survey done of veterans, and some huge percentage of them said they would do it all over again, even knowing the outcome.
Well,
did you know anybody that was asked that? Huh?
Well, Hank, you already answered that question earlier, I believe.
I'm wondering about the survey, where it came from, and who said they'd do it over again, even knowing the outcome. Some of us think back a little bit, and we think about, going down to the bars and all that kind of stuff.
The 80-year-old me wouldn't. The 19-year-old me would probably do the same thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
If when you went in to be sworn in, they said, "Get out of here, Hank, we don't need you," you would have said, "Oh, no, I want to go"?
Well, I wasn't given that.
No, you weren't, but had you been? No, you certainly.
No one asked me if I wanted to reconsider.
I would love to go back to Vietnam on a tour, getting one of those air-conditioned buses and riding.
You know what? I hear that's kind of a popular thing for a lot of Vietnam vets to go back.
My problem with that was 20-something hours in an airplane. I'm doing that.
Well, listen, y'all.
I wouldn't take them up on that opportunity.
Okay.
A beautiful country.
Well, Thailand was close, and I thought it was the same thing.
But oddly enough, they seem to love us there.
Right now,
they're brave people.
Yeah. Okay, man. Thank you, Hank and Ray, and for the show today. And y'all have been listening to KCIW LP 100.7 FM here in Brookings, Oregon. And we'll be back next week for another show. Thanks, Hank.
You're welcome. Thank you.